Welcome to this month's challenge hour. So, yesterday was World of Learning, October 2025. So we're gonna have a bit of a challenge hour debrief. How do you get the best out of these expos? Should you even go to these expos? Um, so yeah, it was 2 days of I thought it's blooming fantastic, but today I feel like I want to crawl into a cave with absolutely no internet signal and just sit and eat chocolate mousse for about a week or have a spa day. So, Andy, you were there with me. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling really tired as well, but I think it's more the journey than anything else. Um, Day one is always the busiest, and you kind of thrive on the adrenaline and also the busyness of the day. Day two is often quieter, but more thoughtful, and you meet some more interesting people, I think, on day two. But of course, day two, and I didn't sleep very well in the hotel as well, which doesn't help.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
long answer. The short answer is I'm really tired.
Yeah, I've been looking on LinkedIn and I don't think I've seen a single post of anyone saying, I'm absolutely buzzing and full of energy. Everybody's like, yeah, I'm knackered. Sorry if it takes a while for me to get back to you. But this is the thing, when you're working for yourself, when you're going as a business owner, it's a bit of a different experience than if you're going on behalf of an employed, company as an employee. I don't know, it's when I went as Sky Bet for my first ever time, I was going with the mind of, okay, what am I seeing? Who's here? What are the trends? What am I taking back to the company? And now I'm like having the mindset of what are the trends? Who's there? But who am I potentially collabing with? Who am I networking with? So it's a really different focus.
It is, and I think also sort of over time, because a lot of the talks are going to be targeted at the ideal punter, who is the one who's very naive but has a massive budget. Um, Over time, you've heard a lot of it before, and actually the quality that you get is through catching up with your network, comparing notes, reflections, seeing what they're making of things. And it comes down to how easily could I bump into these 50 people versus how long would it take for me to arrange virtual cups of tea with all of them. And so, whilst I can hear you both sort of saying, it's been intense, I'm a bit knackered,
Yeah.
it's an incredibly efficient way of getting to a lot of people fast
Yes.
without having to organize anything. And then there is also that element of serendipity, easy for you to say, um, because there may just be some some random spark, random person that gives you some ideas that are really gonna move your thinking forward or your business forward.
Hmm.
Um, I think what's also quite quite interesting is that from time to time I get asked by clients to go to a show and find out certain stuff. And even if I haven't got that as a brief, I quite like to set myself a brief like that because then it gives me a bit of purpose going around the stands rather than just going, ooh, bright lights, ooh, freebies,
Bucks.
Well,
ooh.
we met somebody like that, didn't we, on day one? Had actually had a list of people he wanted to see and had laminated it into
Yes.
the
I was
size of a
very
credit card.
impressed.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was serious stuff. That was serious stuff. So, no,
A
I think it's
laminator.
good to have a challenge and to have a list of people to go and visit. I think the other thing with working on or not working, but being on the L&D Free Spirit stand is you're not really selling. Um, you're just
Hmm.
kind of making people understand what the community is, and it's either for them or it isn't.
Yeah. I
Um,
think it's like the price is almost an afterthought of the conversation.
yeah, and you're not demonstrating anything. You're just saying, "Hey, we're a community, and we exist for this reason. And if you're that kind of person that needs that kind of community, here we are. And if you're not, then it's been lovely to meet you. Have a chocolate." It's not
And a tea
hard.
bag.
Yeah, and a tea bag. It's not a hard sell. We don't have to demonstrate anything. We kind of explain I explain what I personally get out of it. Um, Unlike some of the other stands where, they're just trying to recoup their money from getting new customers for their software product or their service. It's
Yeah. I think you've got to, when you go into these as an independent, like somebody had mentioned that they'd seen a post that somebody had put on the socials to say, "Don't go, you'll just get sold to." And it's like, well, yeah, that's the whole freaking point of exhibiting at these, so you can sell to potential clients. And whether you're an independent or you're on an exhibitor or whether you're an employee of a company, you've got to go to these things with your eyes open. That if you're going to an expo, if you go into a conference, the people that are running it, their purpose is to get clients. I mean, yes, like you're saying, we're not there to sell. It's more about raising awareness, but ideally, raising awareness to a point that people think that we're awesome and they want to
Yeah,
sign up for
obviously.
membership. But we're not doing a hard sell. Some people will do a hard sell, you know.
And I think World of Learning always seems to feel like an industry event, whereas learning technologies seems like a public event. So even if you are you're being sold to on a much more intelligent level. I feel it's more there's more in-depth conversations.
Mhm.
And I also wonder whether the stands are not as expensive at World of Learning because people aren't so desperate. And let's face it, you go to learning technologies and people have got massive stands which must be hundreds of thousands, and they have to recoup that money somehow. They're not there just to say we're here. They're there to sell, obviously. So um, that's why I like World of Learning more. It's strange because I like World of Learning, but I'm never going to find a client there, I don't think.
Thing is, you never know
But
because
you
it
never
could be
know.
a client by association. You meet somebody there and they have a client who isn't a fit for them and they recommend you. So it's one of those. You
It's
totally agree.
it kind of for me the kind of business happens on LinkedIn or happens via email whilst I'm at the show, and I can actually use it as a bit of a conversation and say, oh, by the way, are you a World of Learning the next 2 days? Because I am there. Um, and I did get a couple of deals whilst I was there, but they came through LinkedIn whilst I was at the show. So
Hmm.
yeah, I guess it's exposure as well. It's exposure for free spirits and it's exposure for all of us, really, isn't it? But I haven't posted all week because it's just I didn't feel like I had anything to say apart from wow. I'm tired.
Yeah.
So how busy was the Free Spirit stand at Wool?
Oh, busy.
I'd say it was
Yeah.
the same as last year. I feel, yeah. It was as busy.
Day one was rammed pretty much.
Hmm.
I feel that there were more independents there. I'm saying independents, freelancers, self-employed, whatever.
Yeah.
There were more independents there on day one than there were on day two. I think we had about an hour and a half where we were like, where are all the freelancers? Because it seemed to be the groups of corporates were walking around on day two.
Yeah, there were big
Um,
groups from companies, maybe 5 or 6 people from the same
mm.
company were strolling around.
And you
But we
can't very well say, oh, I want to be a freelancer when you've got your boss looking over your shoulder.
Yeah. But then there
We'll
were a
do
few
your team
independent.
discount.
But then there were a few freelancers who did turn up lunchtime and beyond, who just seemed to just see this ray of light coming out of the stand. It was exactly
Mm.
what they it's exactly what they needed, and they perhaps some of them didn't know it existed or didn't know what it was
Mm.
until we explained. They said, "Oh, I really need this," and their face would light up. So
Yeah. We found that quite a bit that a lot of people were kind of at a crossroads of they were being made redundant, they'd just been made redundant, they were looking for work, they didn't know what they wanted to do in the future, and they were some of them were quite distressed and concerned about the future, and they didn't know that there was a support community or something like Free Spirits out there. So they'd come and they'd have a chat to one of us on the stand, and then they'd go away feeling a bit better and a bit helpful. With, the niching workbook or the wobble gremlin or the we had the business plan
business plan, yeah,
workbook on there as well. So they'd come with feeling a bit dejected and go away feeling a bit more confident, which for
yeah.
me is that's like the gold star that we want. We want people to come to the stand and go away feeling a bit better, you know.
I'd say that they looked a bit lost.
Mm,
Um, and we kind of reassured them that even though they're freelancers, you're not alone.
yeah.
And I think that was the biggest thing that people would take away is even though you work on your own, you're not alone. Um,
So what would be your tips on not being or not feeling overwhelmed at these expos? Because they're loud, they're big, there's a lot of people trying to get your attention. What would you
So
reckon?
I have a formula for most shows, um, which is actually based on the idea that I feel like for a short amount of time I can be quite bouncy and Tigger-like, but try and make me do that for 2 days and you'll absolutely kill me.
Mm,
So my strategy tends to be, or my ideal exhibition would be use it as an excuse to have lunch with somebody. So arrive in time for lunch, have a couple of hours around the shows, and then go out for the drinks afterwards. And I, for me, that would be probably 80–90% of 2 days of exhibition crammed into half a day and an evening.
in somewhere
And
a lot more relaxed, lunch and drinks.
so for me, it's about the conversations. I'll have a chat to a few people at the stands. Um, Tends to be, yeah, I guess, for many years of being independent, it doesn't take long for a salesperson to clock that you haven't got a budget and you're not worth talking to. But there are usually two or three intelligent questions that you can ask in terms of, oh, some of my clients are going in this area. I see that you've got some features in this. Can you chat me through them?
Mm,
Or, oh, I saw such and such a client last year at the awards that you'd done some work with. Um, can you tell me more about that or other similar use cases? So just getting into a conversation where you can get to know their business, get to know them a bit.
yeah,
Um, 99% of that information is something that you're not going to use in the next month. But the more you do it, the more you store it away, the more you be you become your own little encyclopedia of what's going on in the industry, and people start asking you about stuff.
yeah. And then you become a Yoda. You're like, yes,
mhm.
I know people, I know businesses, I know who's doing what.
And they're doing it without my prior approval, and this has got to stop. No, that wasn't very Yoda at all, but
Mhm.
I,
I think that's a really good point though, that what you're saying about saying I've got a client who might be doing something in this space or whatever, tell me about your product. That's kind of how I would position myself to the stands as an independent. I would say I'm a freelancer, but if I have a client who needs X, I need to know who's doing what. So show me what you got. I'm not going to buy from you, but I may have a client in future. So that's kind of how I position it. And I find that you have a different conversation with the stand holders because they're not directly trying to sell you it, they're trying to show you the benefits. So it's not
Mm.
all about grabby, grabby, grabby. It's here. Let me show you everything, the capabilities, what it can do in a way that you're going to remember it. And let me give you some socks.
I also think it's good if you're going to an exhibition, take a buddy with you. I think that's a really important thing. First time I went to World of Learning, I kind of hung around the Learning Network stand, and that was my safe space because there were some friendly faces. But then I would break away and go and meet some people, and then come back there to feel comfortable again. This time it's my third World of Learning. There's probably 5 or 6 stands where I've got good relationships with the people there. They're good friends now, and they're my safe spaces. And if someone on one of those stands says to me, "Oh, you should go and speak to someone on this stand," I take a lot of importance with that and go and do that because they're obviously saying it for a reason. But Kim
Mm.
and I we went to Learning Technologies, didn't we?
Yeah.
And I went to one earlier this year, which was I can't even remember what it was, but I went with my best friend and we buddied up, and also he was quite shy, so it was easier for me to ruck up onto a stand and say, "You should speak to this guy because he's brilliant,"
Mm.
and do an introduction that way. Um, so yeah, buddy up if you can, if it's all feeling a bit overwhelming, and also take some breaks.
Yeah.
Get out of the hall, go and sit in a corner
More quiet.
somewhere quiet, yeah, and just take a bit of a break. World of Learning, not so much, but I know when I walk into work learning technologies the first time, there's just this wall of noise and lights and stormtroopers and robots
Yeah.
attacking me, and it takes a long time for me to acclimatize to that.
That learning tech. I mean, it was great tag teaming because
Yeah,
we would walk around and then we would be discussing, the benefits of everything. If you do that by yourself, you don't have that other brain to bounce things off. Um,
yeah,
but I don't know if it was the first or the second day that all I ate was ice cream until about 2:30. But we found, I think it was the Dutch stand, and they
yeah.
had these comfy chairs just in a little nook. And it was like you were apart from everything. And we just sat
Yeah,
there. I had my pistachio ice cream. It was amazing.
I have my
You had your
coffee.
coffee. And we just sat and we took, what, 10, 15 minutes? And it was like, when you sat in a coffee shop window and you're people watching. It was that kind of feeling. It was like being away from
And
the expo.
we didn't get leapt upon by them. Why are you sat here? Do you want to
Yeah.
buy our software either? They were actually quite nice to us. Maybe
Yeah.
they saw it in our eyes.
We just want ice cream and coffee. Yeah. I think that when you're doing expos, and especially if you're doing both days or doing the entire thing start to finish, it can very quickly be overwhelming. It can very quickly be like a rinse and repeat, just walking around, walking around. You might talk to this person, you might talk to that person, and you don't have a purpose.
I think
So,
that's the biggest thing I can say is don't think I'm going to go to this show because you'll turn up, you'll walk around for an hour, and then you'll probably be at a loose end. But say I'm going to go to the show because I want to visit that stand and ask them about this, or I
yes.
want to go and visit that technology area and see what's new. But really have a task,
Or
some
go to
tasks.
this discussion panel or this talk or
Yeah.
whatever you've got to plan, you've got to prep. And if we're exhibiting, you have to visit the Free Spirit stand.
Well, obviously, yeah. That's number
Obviously.
That's
one.
the law.
That's the first stop, surely.
Yeah. So the must things, refillable water bottle,
Yes.
your comfiest shoes in existence,
Yep.
loose clothing, because you want to be comfortable.
Yep.
Um, so refillable water bottle, comfy shoes, maybe even a sandwich. There's nothing wrong with taking your own packed lunch if you can. I'm usually in a hotel, so it's not feasible for me. But there's nothing wrong with taking a
Or a bag of nuts and
bag
fruit,
of
as I
nuts,
had.
snacks,
Yeah.
because you don't want to pay £8 a sandwich. I'm too Yorkshire for that. But there's
And a guide. Take a guide with, print something out at home, scribble down where you
yes.
want to go, and have a bit of a plan of attack.
I usually have an Excel spreadsheet with what's happening where, which stand, and then I can put that against the map and be like, right, where am I going?
But also be prepared to deviate off that plan as well. If
Mm.
don't stick to the plan. If someone says to you, you should go and speak to this company, you
Yeah.
shouldn't say, well, it's not on my list.
It's not on my list. It's not on my
I
laminate.
hadn't planned for that.
That was the thing. So the guy with the laminate, I said to him, actually, looking at who you're talking to, you need to go speak to Liggy. And I was like, you need to speak to Learning Network. And I was saying, in addition to these, speak to these people because.
Mm. So, rather than taking your own portable laminating machine with you,
Yeah, that was quite extreme, that was, but
I think
I
it's
loved
genius.
it. It
The other
is.
thing I was going to chuck in was if if you do think that it's all going to feel a bit much and a bit intense, just take a book with you
yeah,
because then you can just find a quiet corner for 20 minutes, take yourself out of the environment, recharge. Um,
there was a great little area around the back of the show where near where the toilets were that was really quite quiet, wasn't it?
Yeah. And it had benches.
And it had benches there, which not many people knew about. So,
Yeah.
yeah, a trip to the loo was actually quite nice. It was quite relaxing for many other reasons.
Jane was wearing some earplugs, which she could hear what people were saying to her.
Yeah,
It
they
was
were just
dialing
restricting.
down the external noise.
mm,
So if you get overwhelmed with noise, because it was bloody loud, because you've got all of your seminar sessions, you've got thousands of people in one room, high ceilings. If you get noise overwhelm, then investing in some earplugs would be a
That's the
good.
one thing I was surprised at World of Learning is learning technology. They have headphones for the presentation, so they can dial the volume down a bit. But World of Learning didn't have headphones on the chairs, so they had to kind of crank it a bit,
mhm.
Yeah.
which I quite surprised me.
Mm. Okay, so I'm thinking let's wrap up this challenge hour. This sorry.
Bless you.
Hmm. This
Any tips on not picking up respiratory infections from
Don't
exhibitions?
oh,
don't.
honestly, day two, it was like I had been sucking sand all day. Yeah, stay hydrated. Take a lip balm as well. Lip balm, Werther's Originals, or something to, not be like you're in sand because you've got all this air conditioning. Okay, anyway, eye drops for air conditioning. All right,
Oh,
final tip.
1970 styles pipe.
Oh, all right, so Viv, give me for a first time visitor to an exhibition like World of Learning, Learning Tech, anything like that. Top tip for a first time person.
Have a little look through the program. Decide your top three things that you're likely to be interested in. Um, Go in with a plan, but also be prepared to change it as serendipity strikes.
Okay, Andy.
Mine is take a friend, meet a friend there, or when you get there, make a friend with somebody. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, mine would be don't be a merch hound, which is weird coming from me because y'all know that I love my merch, but being a business owner now that exhibits, I know how much this stuff costs. So don't just go swiping things, have a conversation with them. So don't be a merch hound. Have a conversation. Go in with an open mind and know that you're there to get information. You're there to get skills, knowledge, all of that stuff. They're there to give it to you, but they also have a product to sell because these stands are bloody expensive. So open mind. Don't just swipe the merge. Have a conversation and smile to people. And if you have a spare lollipop and a stand doesn't have sweeties, ask them if they want a lollipop. Because a lot of times they need a bit of an e-number boost.
Yeah.
That was many tips there.
It's all still quite raw.
Yeah. We all still need to have a bit of a nana nap after that.
And do you find that wearing multiple pairs of vendor socks ensures that when you're on your feet all day, that you don't get blisters?
You know what? The best merch in the world, and this is going back years, it's always the socks. The amount of expo socks that I've got in my drawer, my husband loves them as well. So grab socks. All right. So on that note, thank you all very much for joining. If you have any questions about attending your first ever expo or tips and tricks, you can reach out to any of us on LinkedIn or in the community for Free Spirits.